Hello, lovely. I'm Kathy Garner, the relationship artist, and I'm really excited to introduce to you today somebody who I have known and admired since we were teenagers together at school. And she's been a real inspiration to me recently in her work with survivors of abuse. And I'd love you to get to know her too. So could you say a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what's inspired you to do the work that you do?
So, hi Kathy, thank you so much for having me. So my name's Dani Downey, and I'm a 47-year-old. That sounds really scary because I still feel like I'm 16 and at school. Year-old mum. I live in Devon, and for a long time I was a midwife. But I always had an interest in domestic abuse, even when I was a midwife. I wrote lots of policies, I've implemented lots of change through government initiatives about domestic abuse and pregnancy. And when I had a life crisis in 2011 and left the NHS, I started to work for Women's Aid, and I retrained to become an advocate for women who are experiencing the most high, severe type of domestic abuse, those at risk of murder or harm, the top 3%. So I spent a lot of time working in family court, working with the police, working with children's services and CAFCAS. So I've got a huge sort of background of working professionally. And along the same time, I was also in family court myself for 7 years, self-representing. So I've done a lot of work with the legal system to do with divorce and child contact issues. And 2 years ago, I started working pro bono alone for women with suffering domestic abuse.
So this is what you now do as well as a coach, as a paid coach, isn't it? That you help people partly with the education, like what does this abuse actually look like? And then giving people both the mindset and the practical skills to do something about it. I mean, you even help people through the courts, don't you?
So because I've self-represented for such a long time, it tends to be women going through family court that I can really empower because I've been an applicant in person. Myself for so long. So because legal fees and legal aid has been cut such a lot that if you own your own home, you don't get legal aid, even though you are under domestic abuse remits. The laws changed dramatically, funding cuts have happened, that there are so many women out there who I see getting shafted by a system that is so adversarial.
And I think probably people find it easy to do that with you because you've got your own story, haven't you? You're a survivor yourself. And you've written about it. So can you tell us a little bit about your book, your best-selling book?
So I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and also was in an abusive relationship for 10 years, although I didn't realise that at the time. I didn't come to terms with my own sexual abuse as a child until I was in my late 30s, and 3 years ago decided to write about it. So my book's called It's No Secret, Thriving After Surviving. Because I don't believe, there's a small play on words there, the more we speak out about sexual violence and domestic abuse, the more, one, we open doors to other people.
Part of the reason I wanted to introduce you to Dani was just so that if there are any situations, if you know anyone who's going through situations like that, then do reach out. Can you just remind us of the name of your group, Dani?
Speak Out Sisterhood, which is SOS. And I opened that group 2 years ago, virtually to the day, when I was feeling so disempowered. I'd written my book, my family had come out all guns blazing, and I felt so alone that I had all these amazing reviews on Amazon. It had knocked Oprah Winfrey off the top spot, but actually I felt more alone than ever. So that group became our sanctuary, and over 2 years has organically grown and grown.
For people seeing you and seeing how much you kind of thrive and kind of glow really gives people real hope. But also what's interesting, I think, is that for all of us, we are still on this journey, aren't we? And a couple of years ago, you came to me and you said, I could probably do with having a chat, Kath. What happened then? Where were things then for you?
So our relationship, which has always been amazing, had a few external sort of factors which were becoming issues. And I think the general life stresses and strains of we've got a blended family that have all been together for a very long time. Money worries, just the general things were starting to come to a head, and we'd forgotten how to communicate. And I think, like you say, those 4 toxic behaviours crept in insidiously, and very quickly you start to ask yourself, is this relationship all right? Is it where I want to be? And I think we were both at that point when I came to you. We'd actually been for a session with which just was horrific, and so time bound and blamey, that we both came away. We'd actually gone there separately. We actually both came away, we're like, oh my God, that's horrific, let's not do that. And then I suddenly thought, actually, I know somebody who does that sort of stuff. Let's reach out to Kathy, because, you know, for the money we paid, actually, let's just do it because it's cheaper than a divorce, which is kind of where we were. Whilst it wasn't that we didn't love each other, we just had reached this kind of head-butting, like two tortoises batting heads, and just didn't know how to stop doing that.
We went through all of the 12 essential relationship skills that I teach, and it's a very different, it almost flips the kind of counselling model on its head, because instead of starting by talking about, well, what are the problems, and getting into that kind of blamey state, we always start with, well, what do you really want, and what's your friendship like, and how can we make this really work?
My husband's a man of few words, I'm the gobby one, but we both feel, and even after the first session, we could start to feel ourselves meshing back together. It was really welcoming to not have to sit and say, well, he did that and I did this, and have the finger pointing. We didn't need to do that. What we did was start to build on those solid foundations of actually, well, what are our common threads, our common values? What do we love about each other? How are we going to communicate this? For us, the most powerful thing was the love chests. You know, what is it that makes each one of us? How do we communicate in our languages? Because we are very, very different. And knowing that we're different and that's okay has allowed us to we make exceptions. So there's no longer this miscommunication that then leads to resentment and then becomes criticism.
So what would you say to someone who was a little bit on the fence, maybe considering working with me?
I think that you have to, if you're somebody who doesn't want to get divorced, and you haven't got anything to lose with this, because I wasn't sceptical. Charlie was a bit sceptical, I have to say, but I wasn't sceptical because I trust Kathy implicitly. And actually, but I didn't really know what you did. So I think that people just have to kind of go in with open eyes and be prepared that it will rock their world, that it's not all about dredging up the past and pointy finger blame. What it is positive and beautiful and empowering and all sorts of marvellous other words. But until you try it, you don't know. And that if your other half is sceptical, just ask them to trust you. I ask them just to say, you know, this is such a short period in your time, it's less than a working day, that it's well worth that investment.
Thank you, gorgeous girl. It's been so lovely having you. Thank you for speaking about your stuff and being so open as well about your own situation. And I really honour you for the work that you're doing and the help that you're giving to people who would otherwise feel that loneliness. I think it's amazing.